She lived in a quiet neighborhood until she woke up inside a shipping container. And it all started with a neighbor. This is today's episode of the Horror Storycast.
It started with a missed call. Madison had been folding laundry when she saw it. Elise Turner. No voicemail. Just the call, sitting there on the screen like an open door. Elise was her neighbor across the street, divorced, sharp-tongued, beautiful in a way that felt lived in, not curated. They'd exchanged waves and wine and the occasional, "You doing okay?" But in the last few weeks, things had changed. Their night walks had gone from casual to necessary. At first, they walked just to get away from the glow of porch lights and the buzz of meaningless conversation with their spouses. But soon, the walks became longer, later, quieter. Madison found herself opening up in ways she never had. Not with Travis, not with anyone. She told Elise about the emptiness in her house, about how she'd cry sometimes in the pantry just to feel something, about how she felt like a ghost, alive, but only halfway. Elise didn't fix anything. She just listened. And then one night, under a broken street lamp near the cul-de-sac, Elise reached out and touched her hand. It wasn't a question, and it wasn't a mistake. Madison's heart rattled against her ribs, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't pull away. She didn't want to. The kiss came next, soft, slow, sad. A confession in silence. When they broke apart, Madison felt warmth for the first time in months. Not just physical, but human, real. But guilt is a living thing, and it followed her home. She stopped walking at night, shut the curtains tighter, ignored Elise's messages, tried to slide back into the rhythm of pretending. Travis never noticed. He was working late again. But Cameron did. She knew because the next morning another photo arrived. No envelope, no message. Just the still frame, clearly taken from a second-story window. Herself and Elise, walking under the glow of that broken street lamp. Their hands were almost touching. She stared at the photo for a long time. Something inside her twisted, not just fear, but violation. That same day, her phone pinged with a notification. Someone had tagged her in a short video on Instagram. She tapped the screen. It was a live stream from a girl across the block. A teenager filming her dog chasing a squirrel down the sidewalk. The footage was shaky, loud, stupid. But then, just for 2 seconds, Madison appeared in the background. She was crossing the street with Elise. And behind them, a silhouette in a window. A figure standing completely still, watching. It was Cameron's house. The live had only a few views. The teen probably never noticed the background. But Madison did. She watched it 10 times, then deleted the tag. No one else needed to see it. But the question burned in her mind. How many times had he watched her like this? How many times had she not known? The lawns were perfect, trimmed like golf courses, each one a reflection of quiet pride or quiet competition. Mailboxes gleamed. Porch swings creaked gently in the breeze. The neighborhood of Brook Hollow looked like it had been lifted from a catalog and frozen in time. Safe, predictable, clean. Madison Holloway used to think that was enough. She moved there 4 years ago, chasing the life she thought she wanted. Big house, wide porch, husband with a steady job. But lately, the quiet had turned heavy. There were mornings she woke up in bed and forgot where she was for a second. Mornings where the sunlight through the blinds felt more like a spotlight than warmth. Her marriage to Travis wasn't abusive. It wasn't angry. It just wasn't. He was always working, always tired, always, almost home. They hadn't touched in 6 months. She tried. She really had. But every conversation now felt like it was happening through fogged glass. And every silence, deeper than the last. She started walking late at night, headphones in, music off, just to feel the air, just to feel something that didn't echo. And that's when she noticed him. Cameron Locke. The perfect neighbor, early 40s, tall, always helpful, always smiling just enough. He was the kind of man everyone liked. The kind that hosted barbecues and remembered birthdays and had a tool for every problem. He lived alone, divorced, supposedly, no kids, but always around, always outside, always watching in ways that didn't feel like watching until they did. The first time Madison felt it was on a Wednesday. She'd stepped out back with a glass of wine. The night was cool, the breeze soft. She felt a tingle crawl up her spine before she even turned, and when she did, there he was, Cameron, standing in his upstairs window, lights off, just watching. She froze. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just stood there, still, silent. Then the curtain shifted, and he was gone. Later that night, she got a text. Saw you out on the deck, beautiful night. Casual, friendly, safe words wrapped in strange timing. She didn't respond. But over the next few days, small things started happening. Her trash bins were brought in before she got home. Packages she hadn't ordered appeared on her porch, magazines, coupons, a gardening kit she never asked for. A week later, she received a printed photo in her mailbox. No envelope. Just a picture of her, walking past his house, taken from behind a window. Her hand brushing a leaf, her hair caught in the wind. The message on the back read, "You look sad when you think no one's looking." She never told Travis. She should have. Saturday morning came dull and gray, the kind of sky that made everything feel slightly off. Madison stood in the kitchen, staring at her packed weekend bag. She told Travis she was going to visit her sister, just a short break, a breath of fresh air. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Be safe," he mumbled. She nodded, but didn't move. The night before, Elise had kissed her again, this time with urgency, like she knew something was ending. Madison hadn't replied to her last message. She wasn't sure what she wanted anymore, only that nothing felt safe anymore, not even her own backyard. When she finally reached for the bag to leave, something made her pause. The front door was slightly ajar. She never left it like that. She stepped outside to look, and then everything went black. By nightfall, the neighborhood was buzzing. Word spread faster than sirens. Madison Holloway, gone. Her car still in the garage, her suitcase on the floor by the stairs, phone missing, purse untouched, the back door found wide open. It didn't make sense. The police canvassed the neighborhood, asked questions, took statements. Travis was distraught, confused. Elise was pale, shaking. And Cameron led the charge. He set up the search group, created flyers, printed maps, brought sandwiches and bottles of water for the volunteers. He was everywhere, answering calls, knocking on doors, comforting Travis. "I just want her found," he said into a local news mic, eyes glassy with what looked like tears. She was like family to us all. No one questioned him. Why would they? He was the hero of the story. Until the teenager with the Instagram account sent the message. She'd seen the search online, made the connection. The live she posted weeks ago, the one where her dog chased a squirrel. Madison had been in it. In the background, next to Elise. And behind them, that figure, frozen in a dark window. When the girl replayed it now, zoomed in, enhanced, it wasn't just anyone. It was Cameron. Watching. Recording? The police flagged the video, but it was too late to act on it. Too blurry, too indirect. Still, Elise saw it, and she felt something snap. She told the officers about the photos, the feeling of being followed, how Madison had seemed nervous, paranoid even. And yet, there were no footprints, no witnesses, no forced entry. Just absence. And miles away, buried beneath a muddy construction zone near the edge of an unfinished hydroelectric plant, a green container sat motionless beneath a patch of disturbed soil. Inside, time had stopped. And Madison lay there, unconscious, cold, alone, breathing. But only just. The first thing she noticed was the cold, not the kind that made you shiver. the kind that wrapped around your bones and whispered, "You don't belong here." Madison's eyes fluttered open, but there was nothing, only blackness. She tried to move, her wrist screamed, her shoulder was pinned against metal, she could barely lift her head. Then the silence pressed in, thick, unnatural, not empty, but sealed. She wasn't in a room, she was in a box. Her breathing quickened, the walls were too close, her hands scraped against steel, cold, rusted in places. Her knees hit corners. There was no airflow, no sound beyond the dull hum of her pulse pounding in her ears. And then, she remembered. The open door, the step outside, the hand, the sharp sting at her neck. And just before everything went dark, a voice. "You don't have to scream. No one's going to hear you out here." She hadn't known who it was then, but now her mind clung to something sharp, a scent, leather and oil, and a detail, a boot. A brown mud-crusted work boot. Right before the container door slammed shut, panic exploded inside her. She screamed, slammed her fists, kicked, punched, clawed. Her voice bounced back at her, thin and useless. She yelled until her throat gave out. Blood from her fingernails smeared against the walls. No one came. She might have passed out again, she didn't know. When she woke, her legs were colder, wetter. Water. It was seeping in, slow at first, trickling through a cracked corner in the floor. She reached down and felt it soak into her jeans. It was freezing, rising. Panic turned to terror. She tried the door. It didn't budge. She screamed again, rasping now. Every breath burned. The air felt thinner. The water crept up her calves, her thighs. She began to float slightly, bumping against the ceiling as the container tilted ever so slightly to one side. She cried, whispered Travis's name, then Elise's, then no name at all, just noises. Pleas to a God she hadn't spoken to in years. Then, with no warning, a lurch. The container shifted violently, a groan of earth and metal. Something beneath it had given way, flooded soil, eroded foundation. It moved. It was no longer buried. Now it was drifting. Madison slammed her shoulder into the wall. Again, again. Her entire body screamed in pain. One side of the container buckled from the pressure. A corner split near the latch. The metal was bent inward, just barely. Enough to try. With shaking hands and frozen fingers, she reached into the gap, pulled, tore, screamed. She felt skin tear from her knuckles. And then, crack. The lock broke. Water exploded in, and so did light. Gray, dull, merciless. She pushed through it, dragged her body out of the container with her last strength, collapsed onto slick rocks and mud. She coughed, gasped. Alive. And then she looked around. Everything was wrong. Foreign. And across the river, a sign in a language she didn't understand swung wildly in the wind. She wasn't in Pennsylvania. She wasn't even in America. The rain hadn't stopped. It poured relentlessly, drenching the banks of a muddy river and battering Madison's trembling body. She lay face down in wet earth, coughing up water and dirt, her vision spinning as the sky shifted above her, gray, furious, endless. She was alive, but she wasn't safe. She tried to stand and collapsed again, her muscles refusing to hold her. Everything hurt. Her skin was bruised, her lips split, and her fingers were raw and bloodied from clawing at metal. Her clothes hung off her like soaked rags. Every inch of her was shaking. The container behind her rocked once, then sank slightly into the mud. Its dented side was streaked with rust and handprints. She turned her head and saw the sign. A weathered piece of metal, nailed to a crooked post across the river. The letters were unfamiliar. Eastern European, Slavic. She couldn't tell, but it wasn't English. And it wasn't home. The realization hit her with the same weight as the floodwater. She was in another country. She didn't know how long she walked. She limped along dirt roads, hid from passing vehicles, scrounged for food in trash bins behind old buildings. She found a tattered blanket in an abandoned shed and used it to sleep behind a gas station. She drank rainwater, ate scraps, avoided people. Her face had become unfamiliar even to herself. Until one night, near a crowded open-air market, a woman in a red scarf stopped her. The woman didn't speak English, but her eyes were kind. She offered water, a piece of fruit, a seat. Madison shook her head, afraid, but the woman gently took out her phone and snapped a picture. A strange instinct kicked in. Madison tried to stop her, but it was too late. The photo had been taken. The woman smiled and walked off. Somewhere deep inside, Madison felt something shift. Back in Pennsylvania, Riley Bennett, 17, obsessed with true crime and moderator of Vilki, Where is Madison Holloway subreddit, was scrolling aimlessly when he saw it. A random Instagram post from a European art page. Caption, "Stranger in the rain, sad eyes." Riley's heart stopped. He clicked. It was a photo of a gaunt woman sitting on a crate near a fruit stand. Wet hair, thin frame, eyes half shut in exhaustion, face streaked with dirt and blood. But it was her. The scar above her eyebrow, the jawline, the shape of her hand. Riley opened Photoshop, enhanced the photo, circled features, posted side-by-side comparisons. Then he DM'd the FBI's tip line and posted to the subreddit, "I think I found Madison." The post blew up in less than an hour. News outlets picked it up. The subreddit crashed. And within 48 hours, U.S. officials confirmed the unthinkable. Madison Holloway was alive, and she had been found because of a live stream that had accidentally captured her being watched, and a photo that the world almost scrolled past. When she saw the American responders approach, badges visible, hands open, jackets marked with U.S. Embassy, Madison broke. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees in the mud. They caught her. "It's okay," one of them whispered. "You're safe now. We're getting you home." But home didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a wound. By the time the plane landed at JFK, Madison Holloway wasn't just a missing person anymore. She was a miracle. News trucks were already waiting. The arrival gate was a maze of flashing lights and boom mics. Strangers clapped as she was wheeled out in the blanket. "Survivor of the Year," someone whispered. Another held a sign, "You are stronger than what tried to bury you." They had no idea how literal that was. She didn't speak to reporters, barely spoke to anyone. The world wanted her story, but Madison was still putting the pieces together. Her body was back. Her soul, not yet. She slept in short, gasping bursts, ate like a bird, avoided mirrors. Her parents wept. Elise came to visit, but Madison didn't open the door, not yet. Travis moved back in temporarily, but they didn't speak more than necessary. He wasn't cruel, just absent. But the one who wouldn't leave her alone was Cameron Locke. He sent flowers, showed up at her house with candles for a quiet vigil, appeared on 3 different news segments as the neighbor who never stopped believing. He called her family. He said he'd been haunted by her absence. And Madison smiled through it, thanked him, sat beside him at a community event, because that's what survivors do, right? They perform their recovery. But inside her, something began to crack open. At night, she started having flashes, tiny fragments, a voice whispering in the dark, the smell of leather and oil, the way the air had tasted before she passed out, metallic, bitter, and a detail that wouldn't leave her. The boot, brown leather, thick sole, mud-streaked, right before the container door slammed shut. She remembered it vividly. And that's when she asked the FBI a quiet, simple question. During the search, did Cameron Locke wear brown boots? The agent blinked. "Yeah, work boots." "Why?" Madison didn't answer. Instead, she asked to see the search maps, the ones Cameron had helped organize. Every single location he pushed for was miles away from the riverbed where she'd escaped. Every tip he gave had been a distraction. He had misdirected them. Over and over. And then came the video. The original Instagram Live, the one where the teenager had captured Madison and Elise walking, had finally been enhanced by investigators. They ran it through a digital forensic tool, stilled it, stabilized it, brightened the contrast. And there he was, in the upstairs window. Cameron, holding up a phone, recording them, watching her, before, during, after, everything. Madison watched that still frame for a long time, her face reflected back at her from the laptop screen. The ghost of who she was, trapped in digital proof that the man who claimed to save her had been the one watching her drown. She turned to the FBI agents, her voice low and steady. "He buried me. And then he cried for me on TV." It fell apart faster than anyone expected. One day, Cameron Locke was leading prayer circles for Madison. The next, the FBI was knocking on his door with a federal warrant and a face no longer smiling. The illusion cracked clean down the middle. His phone history was the first blow. Deleted searches, recovered by specialists, revealed queries that sent chills down the spine. Best way to cut air in sealed space. Shipping container oxygen duration. Can metal trap sound? Body decomposition submerged. The second blow came from a storage unit rented under a fake name 2 towns away. Inside, a shipping container. Clean, empty, almost identical to the one Madison had been trapped in. Along the walls were faint scratches, as if something, or someone, had been tested there first. There was also a sealed plastic bin. Inside, duct tape, gloves, a heavy-duty flashlight, and a pair of brown work boots, caked in dried river mud. And then came the third blow. Madison's scarf, the same one she'd worn the night she disappeared, still damp, stuffed in a black duffel bag. There was no more room for doubt, but Cameron was gone. He'd slipped out hours earlier, driving east toward the nearest regional airport. Security footage showed him checking into a flight to Costa Rica. Calm, clean-shaven, carry-on only. He might have made it too, if not for the television above the gate. The news broke mid-boarding. Breaking. FBI issues arrest warrant for Cameron Locke in the Madison Holloway case. Survivor confirms, he buried me alive. The segment cut to Madison, now stronger, seated in front of an American flag, giving her first statement. She stared directly into the camera. He was the one giving wrong directions. He was the one recording me. He was the one who smiled while I screamed in the dark. Cameron froze in front of the TV. He didn't move when security approached. He didn't blink when they tackled him to the floor near Hudson News. But when they cuffed him, he whispered something. She wasn't the first. The arrest was front-page material. The neighborhood went silent. Madison didn't speak to reporters. Not yet. But she did go to the FBI the next day with one last piece she hadn't shared. A memory. Faint, fragmented, but real. Back inside the container when the door was about to close, he had leaned in. Close enough for her to feel the warmth of his breath. And he had said, "No one will hear you, not like the last one." The agent stared at her. There were no records of other victims, no missing persons that matched his profile. No evidence, yet. But something about the calm in his voice, the routine in his method, the way he inserted himself into the aftermath, it didn't feel like improvisation. It felt rehearsed. Madison stood to leave. At the door, she paused. He had it all planned. He was always 2 steps ahead. He just didn't count on the rain. The trial never happened. After Cameron Locke's arrest, the FBI found enough evidence to keep him behind bars indefinitely. But the prosecution knew what Madison knew deep down. This wasn't just about her. It never was. He was too calm, too prepared, too experienced. They kept digging, but no other victims surfaced. At least, not yet. Madison moved in with her parents, cut her hair, stopped using social media. Sometimes she'd catch her own reflection and flinch, unsure whether she saw the survivor or the woman who'd once screamed in a box underground, unsure if the sun would ever touch her skin again. Elise came by once. They talked, cried, didn't try to explain anything. There were no labels for what had happened between them, just shared pain and quiet understanding. Travis moved on. He never asked for her back. She didn't blame him. A few weeks later, a small package arrived in the mail, no return address, just her name, written carefully on a cream envelope. Inside, one photo. A woman, pale, thin, eyes wide and sunken, standing in what looked like a hallway, bare walls, a concrete floor, a single folding chair behind her. Her expression wasn't fear. It was resignation. On the back, a message in small, blocky handwriting. You were lucky. There was no other note, no sender, no fingerprints. Madison didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she called the FBI, showed them the photo, asked if it could be digitally traced, metadata, print type, paper source. They promised to investigate, but she already knew what they'd say. They wouldn't find anything. That photo didn't come from someone watching. It came from someone waiting. The container had opened. The story had gone viral. The man who tried to kill her was locked away. But in the world beneath the headlines, something else was stirring. And Madison could feel it, not in her mind, but in her bones. There was one thing Cameron had whispered before closing the door, a sentence she had tried to forget. You're not the first. She stood now in her doorway, holding the envelope, the morning sun casting long shadows behind her. The floor creaked beneath her feet. Her hand touched the doorknob. Behind her, something settled in the silence of the house. And just before stepping outside, she looked back once and whispered, "How many doors are still closed out there?"
So, you made it this far. Impressive. My goal is to bring you videos that will make you think. What if this is actually true? Consider subscribing to get direct access to new videos and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next video. If you have the courage to watch until the end.